It's Christmas in California, but this year, the only thing coming down your chimney is rainwater. Roads are rivers, neighborhoods are underwater, and emergency alerts are pinging phones like fireworks on New Year's Eve. The strongest atmospheric river in years has slammed into the state, and it's turning one of the busiest holidays into a full-blown natural disaster. From Northern California's wine country to the sun-drenched suburbs of the South,
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
storm is sparing no one. Entire streets are flooded out. Cars are bobbing in intersections like rubber ducks in a bathtub. Power lines are down, transformers are bursting, and thousands are spending Christmas in the dark with no lights, no heat, and in some cases, no way out. This isn't just a freak storm. It's a climate-fueled monster. An atmospheric river so massive it's dumping the equivalent of 20 Mississippi rivers worth of moisture straight into the state. And it's not letting up. This system is a fire hose in the sky, stretching from near Hawaii to California, and it's pounding the region with relentless waves of rain. Each surge worsens the situation. Each new band of moisture saturates the ground even more. And every hour that passes brings new chaos. At this point, the soil has had enough. It's not absorbing a thing. What used to be sponge-like terrain has turned into a sheet of glass. So now, every drop of rain just runs off fast. Streams are swelling, rivers are rising, and drainage systems are tapping out. The result? Flash floods erupting out of nowhere. Streets that were passable 10 minutes ago are suddenly underwater. And in the hills and canyons, it's even worse. Burn scars from recent wildfires are now death traps. Without vegetation to hold the soil, it only takes a few minutes of intense rain to trigger deadly debris flows. Entire hillsides are crumbling, sending mud, rock, and ash cascading down toward homes. These mudslides are fast and predictable, and nearly impossible to escape once they begin. Geologists are warning residents in high-risk zones to get out now because once it starts, it's already too late. And through all of this, emergency responders are in overdrive. Rescue teams are going door to door, guiding families through waist-deep floodwaters. They're pulling people from submerged vehicles, carrying children, helping the elderly, saving pets. In some places, they're using literal piles of debris as makeshift bridges just to reach stranded residents. The scale of the response is massive, but the storm isn't letting up, and resources are stretched thin. Power outages are widespread. Entire communities are offline. Traffic signals are down. Roads are closed. The state's infrastructure is showing the cracks literally and figuratively. Urban areas are overwhelmed by runoff. Mountain roads are being torn apart by flowing water. And even places that normally handle storms well are now underwater. And here's the brutal part. This isn't even over. Forecast models show that more rain is on the way. In fact, the next 48 to 72 hours are expected to be the most critical. Back-to-back atmospheric waves are slamming the state with very little time to recover in between. That means there's no time for the ground to dry out, no chance for rivers to recede, and no break for emergency services. The storm is layering disaster on top of disaster. Officials are urging everyone to stay vigilant. If you're in a flood-prone zone, be ready to evacuate. Move valuables to higher ground. Pack emergency kits now. Don't wait for an alert. By the time the warning comes, it may already be too late. Authorities are pleading with people, do not drive through flooded roads. Most flood-related deaths happen in cars. And with water levels changing so fast, even shallow-looking roads can become impassable in minutes. The science behind this storm is just as intense as the impact. Atmospheric rivers aren't new, but this one is breaking records. They're calling it a Pineapple Express, a conveyor belt of tropical moisture feeding directly into California. And while these systems do bring much-needed water to the state, when they hit back-to-back like this, it's a nightmare. The ground simply can't keep up. The flood defenses aren't built for this. And in fire-scarred regions, the danger is doubled. Hydrologists are warning that we've hit the tipping point. The early storms soaked the ground, but now every new drop is causing immediate runoff. That means rivers are rising with terrifying speed. Creeks that were quiet are now raging torrents. Flash floods are forming in areas that rarely see flooding. It's a dangerous cocktail: steep terrain, saturated soil, and wave after wave of relentless rain. Add in the wildfire damage, and it's a perfect storm literally. Hillsides stripped bare by fire are now sliding down into neighborhoods. The soil, weak and ash-covered, has nothing anchoring it. In just a few minutes of heavy rain, these areas become landslide zones. And once those flows start, there's almost no stopping them. They move fast. They destroy everything in their path. And they're hitting communities that are already vulnerable. This disaster is putting every system to the test. Drainage, overwhelmed. Roads, collapsing. Power grids, out. Emergency services, maxed out. It's exposing the cracks in California's infrastructure, especially in areas where outdated systems weren't built to handle this scale of weather. And behind it all is the bigger picture, climate change. Scientists have been warning that extreme weather events like this are becoming more frequent and more severe. What used to be once-in-a-decade storms are now regular occurrences. This atmospheric river is just the latest example of how warming oceans and shifting weather patterns are turning familiar storms into something far more dangerous. The footage coming out of California is jaw-dropping. Cars underwater. Water roaring down city streets like rapids. Helicopters plucking residents from rooftops. Neighborhoods turned into lakes. This isn't isolated. This is statewide. And the storm is still gaining momentum. So what now? The focus is on survival and mitigation. People are being told to stay off the roads, follow emergency alerts, and get out of danger zones if they can. In many areas, evacuation orders have already been issued. In others, they're expected any minute. And the next 72 hours are the most critical window. What people do now, how quickly they act could be the difference between staying safe and being caught in disaster. This isn't just a wake-up call, it's an alarm blaring at full volume. California's changing climate reality means these kinds of events are no longer anomalies. And the state's infrastructure, planning, and emergency systems have to evolve just as fast. Because right now, they're barely holding on. Stay safe, stay alert, and do not underestimate what's happening. The strongest atmospheric river in years has hit California with full force, and it's still unfolding. If you're watching this and you live in the state, follow your local alerts and take action now. If you've already been affected, share your experience in the comments. We want to hear how people are coping, what help is needed, and what others should prepare for. And if you're outside the danger zone, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for updates on this and other critical events. Because this storm isn't just California's problem, it's a glimpse of what's to come. As the storm tightens its grip on California, what's unfolding isn't just another rainy winter, it's a statewide stress test. And so far, everything from hillsides to highways is failing spectacularly. This is what happens when you take years of drought, overlay it with record-breaking wildfires, and then blast it with an atmospheric river of historic proportions. The result? Absolute mayhem. And let's be clear, we're not just talking about rain. This isn't some cozy fireplace weather. This is water pouring from the sky in sheets, sweeping through homes, parking lots, shopping centers, anywhere it can find a slope. And once it finds that slope, it barrels downhill like a freight train. Neighborhoods that thought they were in safe zones are now discovering what happens when upstream floodwaters come crashing down with nowhere to go. In Ventura County, streets became canals. In Sonoma, rescue teams are pulling people from rooftops. In Los Angeles, videos are surfacing of entire intersections underwater. And in mountain communities, debris flows are bulldozing anything in their path. Mud, boulders, tree trunks, it's all coming down in violent waves, giving people minutes, sometimes seconds to react. And the scary part is how fast it's all moving. Hydrologists are warning that this isn't a watch and wait scenario. With the ground this saturated, you don't get time to assess. When it rains, it floods. Instantly. Rivers that look calm at noon can be waist-deep by 2 p.m. Sidewalks disappear. Backyards collapse. And in the hills, roads are sliding off the edges like soggy cake. If you think this sounds dramatic, emergency responders would beg to differ. They're the ones knee-deep in freezing water, navigating neighborhoods with inflatable boats, pulling kids out of bedrooms that are rapidly filling with rainwater. One rescuer described it like trying to plug a dam with your bare hands. There's just too much. Too much water, too fast, and too little time to get everyone out. And still, the rain keeps coming. Meteorologists are calling this the most powerful system in nearly 2 years. The tropical moisture pipeline feeding into California, this so-called Pineapple Express, is acting like an unstoppable conveyor belt. Every time it looks like things might slow down, another band of storms rolls in. It's not a single punch, it's a pummeling. And that's what's making this so dangerous. If this were one storm, it'd be bad enough. But this is multiple storms stacked on top of each other. Like dominoes lined up across the state, each one setting off the next. The land doesn't get a break. Drainage systems don't get a chance to reset. Emergency crews don't get to regroup. It's just wave after wave, wearing down every layer of defense. Even major highways' lifelines for the state are caving under the pressure. Sections of the I-5 have been closed. The Pacific Coast Highway has seen landslides. Entire stretches of road are underwater or simply washed away. Transportation is grinding to a halt, isolating some communities and making it even harder for emergency services to get through. Then there's the power situation. Thousands of homes are without electricity, and the outages are growing. Transformers are shorting out. Substations are flooded. Some neighborhoods are on day 2 or 3 without any power, and the storm's not done. That means no lights, no heat, no way to charge phones or receive alerts. For many, it's not just an inconvenience, it's a life-threatening situation. And if you're in one of the areas impacted by wildfires over the last few years, the situation is even more dire. The land has been scorched. The roots that once held it together are gone, and what's left is a fragile layer of ash and loose sediment. When the rain hits that, it doesn't soak in. It turns into sludge and it slides fast. Entire slopes are giving way, unleashing mud flows that crash through fences, homes, anything in the path. The worst part, there's no exact science for predicting when a debris flow will start. There are warnings, sure, but when it hits fast. It doesn't wait for your evacuation bag to be zipped up. That's why emergency officials are begging people, especially those in burn-scar zones, to evacuate early. Because once the hillside moves, it's already too late. This isn't just a natural disaster, it's a cascade of failures all happening at once. And it's exposing how ill-equipped the state is to deal with storms of this intensity. The drainage systems weren't built for it. The power grid wasn't ready. The roads weren't reinforced. And the emergency response teams, though heroic, can only do so much when entire cities start flooding at once. So what does preparedness look like when the storm doesn't stop? It looks like checking alerts constantly, even in the middle of the night. It looks like pre-packing bags, moving valuables to the second floor, knowing where to go if the evacuation order comes through. And most importantly, it looks like leaving early. Because once that water starts rising, there may not be another chance. Authorities are emphasizing this point like a broken record. Don't wait. Don't assume you'll have time. If you're in a low-lying area, a floodplain, or near a recently burned hillside, your window to act could be seconds. They're urging people to think ahead, not react in the moment. Over the next 72 hours, more rain is expected. And not just a drizzle. Forecasts are warning of rainfall amounts that far exceed normal December levels. We're talking totals that push entire river systems to the brink. When rivers overflow, it's not just about water on the roads. It's about contaminated floodwaters surging through homes. It's about sewer backups. It's about roads buckling under pressure. It's about people being trapped and responders not being able to reach them in time. This event is being used as a case study in climate vulnerability. Because while California has always had a wet season, the sheer intensity of these atmospheric rivers is part of a new pattern. Climate scientists have been warning that storms are becoming more extreme, more sudden, and more damaging, and this storm is ticking every box. It's not just about the volume of rain. It's about the back-to-back nature of the storms. It's about how saturated the soil already is. It's about the burnt terrain, the aging infrastructure, the limited emergency resources. It's a convergence of factors, and they're all pointing in the same direction, a worsening crisis that requires more than just sandbags and good luck. Cities are beginning to ask hard questions about how flood zones are mapped, how water systems are maintained, how land is developed in high-risk areas. Because it's clear now, the old systems aren't enough. California can't rely on 20th century infrastructure to survive 21st century storms. So here we are. Christmas has turned into a fight for survival for thousands of Californians. And the worst might still be ahead. The next chapter of this storm. It's unfolding right now, and it's not slowing down. Forecast models are still ringing alarm bells. The atmospheric river is not done unloading. In fact, the next surge could hit harder than the last. And here's why that's terrifying. The ground is already maxed out. The rivers are already swollen. The flood zones completely saturated. So when the next round of rain slams into California, there's literally nowhere for it to go. Every drop just stacks onto the disaster. This is the kind of storm that turns a manageable emergency into a full-blown crisis with zero warning. One minute you're checking your phone, scrolling past another flood watch alert, and the next, water's pouring through your front door. That's how fast it's happening. And for people living near hillsides or creeks, the danger isn't just rising water, it's rushing water, mixed with rock, mud, trees, and debris. A slurry of destruction with no brakes. And for the people asking, well, how bad can it really get? It's already gotten bad. People have been rescued from rooftops. Emergency crews are ferrying folks out of apartment complexes on inflatable rafts. Cars are floating, flipped, or wedged in storm drains. Major cities are activating emergency shelters. Schools are closed. Airports are delaying or canceling flights. And still, some people are trying to wait it out. That's the scariest part. This storm doesn't care what your plans are. It doesn't care if it's Christmas or if your basement's never flooded before. It doesn't care if you've lived in the same neighborhood for 20 years and this has never happened. None of that matters now. This isn't business as usual. This is a historic event, something climate scientists have warned about for years. And now, it's here, live, and escalating. So what happens if the next wave of rain is even worse? That's what officials are trying to prepare for. And what's becoming painfully clear is that no matter how good the intentions are, resources are stretched. Flood barriers are in place in some areas but not all. Evacuation orders are being issued but not everyone has the means to leave. And the storm isn't politely waiting for everyone to get out safely. It's already moving on to the next city, the next hillside, the next highway. The real-time footage doesn't lie. Street after street, submerged. Hillsides collapsing. Rivers roaring through suburban cul-de-sacs. And people cold, wet, overwhelmed watching the water rise, helpless to stop it. This is what climate volatility looks like. Not in some far-off projection. Not in a policy paper. Right now. In real homes. On real streets. And it's forcing people, communities, and governments to ask very real questions. How do we live with this? How do we rebuild in a way that anticipates it? Because clearly, these 100-year storms aren't waiting 100 years anymore. As the rain continues to fall and the hours tick by, California remains in a critical window. The next few days will define the true scale of this disaster. And every decision from staying put to evacuating could make the difference between getting through it or becoming another rescue statistic. So if you're watching this and you haven't checked your local alerts, do it now. If you haven't packed a go bag, do it now. And if you think this storm isn't going to reach your area, think again. Because by the time it knocks on your door, it might already be coming through the back. Let us know what you're seeing out there. Flooding in your neighborhood, roads shut down, power outages. Drop it in the comments. Share it with people who need to see it. And if you haven't already, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We're tracking this storm as it unfolds, and this story is far from over.